Hi, I'm Maria.
Hi, I'm Dylan.
I'm Bree.
I'm Sonia.
And we're here today to talk to you about the medical industrial complex. But before we get into that, we feel we have a couple key terms to define to help you keep you on track throughout this video.
First term, sex, which is the classification of male or female gender based on external anatomy.
Gender expression, a person's internal, deeply held sense of their gender.
Transgender. This is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and gender expression differs from what is typically associated with the sex that they were assigned at birth.
Our glossary of key terms in Canvas says, quote unquote, many transgender people are prescribed hormones by their doctors to bring their bodies into alignment with their gender identity. Some people undergo surgery as well, but not all transgender people can or will take those steps, and transgender identity is not dependent upon physical appearance or medical procedures. This leads us into our next term, insurance. This is when we really get into the medical industrial complex. Insurance is defined as a type of insurance coverage that pays for medical and surgical expenses incurred by the insured. Health insurance can reimburse the insured for expenses incurred by illness or from injury, or they can pay the care providers directly.
Specific to trans bodies, a transition is a process that alters one's sex which occurs over a period of time. This can include some or all of the following medical, personal, and legal steps.
Such as telling family, changing name, changing sex on legal documents, hormone therapy, and surgery.
Sex reassignment surgery, also known as gender confirmation surgery, is a doctor-supervised surgical intervention and is only one small step of the transition process.
Just to reiterate, not all transgender people that are transitioning can afford these medical practices or surgeries.
Instead, another option is hormone therapy. It's a form of hormone replacement therapy in which sex hormones and other hormonal medications are administered to transgender or gender nonconforming individuals for the purpose of more closely aligning their sexual expression with their sexual identity. We argue that the medical industrial complex, specifically insurance companies, are outdated because they do not offer equal coverage for transgender bodies.
We intend to prove this by dissecting insurance policy, by explaining the importance of equal coverage for transgender bodies, and exploring their work of people already fighting for equal medical opportunities in the transgender community. I will be speaking of a case study presented by CNN.com on the clash between transgender community fighting for coverage versus the American medical industrial complex abiding by their traditional, discriminatory, suppressing policies that are widely practiced.
Now Dylan will be getting into the meat and potatoes of the medical industrial complex.
So, I will be talking about Jasmine Glenn. As the reported article, to be herself, she needed to change her body, but first comes with the battle of the insurers by CNN.com.
Jasmine Glenn is a transgender woman, and her story can be the voice of many people transitioning and the struggles that they face against many insurance providers nationwide in demanding the coverage that they not only need, but they deserve.
She had a life of denial in who she was, previously being trapped in a male body. The struggle of a female to male or male to female transition is not only one of emotional and mental challenge, but also medical. Jasmine Glenn is a trans woman who had a very tough time in her life finding who she was. In her late 20s, she was drowning in alcoholism as an escape from the life and body she did not want. Then she decided to take charge and let her physical self match who she always envisioned herself being, but it came with a cost. Usually, many trans patients have to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria in order to be able to follow with many transitional surgeries. This leads to a stigma with trans people and mental health. While there is definitely a factor of mental health in transitioning, but not always does mental health take part in transition.
Gender dysphoria is a psychological stress that one may go through when their gender does not match their sex.
After being diagnosed, she was able to follow with her surgeries, some being a vaginoplasty and a facial feminization surgery. Though they were complicated to get, with high-priced doctors, insurance policies clashing with her wants, and referrals quickly expiring, limiting her chances to find a doctor on time, truly adding much stress to her transition that she did not need. Many insurance policies now have to follow the Affordable Care Act, Section 1557, led by President Obama. Glenn and many other women interviewed for this article said they did not feel as though many of their insurers had been following the Affordable Care Act, with policies that did seem to be discriminatory. Towards the end of Jess's case, she was able to get her surgeries that she needed in order to confirm who she truly was. She had to put good money into her surgeries with the help of her insurance, but only a little bit. There is small progress being made in the right direction, but there is still much ahead of us.
You may be thinking, wow, where did this all stem from? Say less. I'm here to provide you with a brief history in hopes that it will help you have a more round understanding of the issues at hand. So the talk of trans bodies and trans politics really started to come about in the 1980s. In 1981, Medicare forbade coverage for transgender-related surgeries, and this really started to take effect throughout the years. In 1981, the Supreme Court ruled that discrimination based on sex stereotyping violated the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As the years went on, the topic at hand, the situation got better. In 1993, Minnesota bans discrimination based on sexual orientation, including the nonconformity to sex stereotypes. And throughout the years, in the 2000s and everything, things got better too. In 2005, California was the first state to prohibit health care plans from discrimination towards gender identity. In 2010, when Obama was president, there were many protections placed to make it easier for transgender patients to receive coverage, such as the Affordable Care Act. In 2014, Medicare lifts the decade ban on transsexual surgery, and throughout the years, people have started to become more aware of the situation and started to find ways to help the cause. Although, when Trump did become president, there have been bans making it more difficult for transgender people to get the treatment that they deserve. One thing that we realized that was really important is the location of everything. We've noticed that 19 out of the 50 states support transgender rights and have laws that ban discriminatory behavior based on gender. But most of these places are in the East Coast and the West Coast. Not many people in the South or the Midwest are very accepting of these beliefs. We've noticed that more urban and contemporary states are in support of transgender rights.
All right, now we're going to talk about people in the field who are actually out there being activists for transgender bodies who are being oppressed by insurance companies. Robin Merrill is the Senior Legislative Counsel at the Human Rights Campaign, which is an advocacy group for lesbian, bisexual, gay, and transgender people. Her work focuses on federal programs, administrative policies, and legislation that impacts the LGBTQ community, healthcare specifically. Through Robin Merrill's work, we are able to understand why transgender bodies cannot get the proper coverage from health insurance companies. So first, I'm going to help you understand the insurance policy process. So basically, you come in and they make you check off a box that marks you as either female or male. Based off of that representation, you're only able to access the services that go along with that gender. Therefore, someone who is transitioning from man to woman or woman to man may still have the biological organs of the other gender, example, a uterus or breast tissue, and as a result, those people can only access services that have to do with their biological gender. And then even throughout the transition process, when they may identify as the opposite gender as their biological parts are, they still may require the services of the gender that they're transitioning from.
Similar to Robin Merrill, a person we discussed in class is Miss Major.
Woo! Not only does Ms. Major work to advocate for basic human rights for transgender bodies, but also for basic medical rights.
We understand that our argument isn't the only one. Since we want to present you with all of the facts so that you can come up with your own conclusion, we're going to present you with the other side. Most people who are opposed to transgender bodies receiving health insurance for their gender reassignment surgeries believe that the procedure is one that is elective and is more of a want than a need. It is looked at as a plastic surgery that is done to change the way one looks, saying that it isn't necessary for one to stay alive.
Thanks for watching!